Alright, before we get this video started, I want to let you know throughout this whole entire video, I'm giving you information on the issue that we're having with the car. So you're going to have to watch the whole video to get all the information and get it down. If you want to save some money and do this yourself, you're going to have to pay attention. So let's get on with the video. How you doing, everyone? It's Kevin. I'm back on another video. If you own a Mitsubishi Outlander Sport, now this is a 2015 behind me right here. This is my wife's car. Now, what happened was on the dash, the lights on the dash started flickering. Now, it was the ABS light, the traction control, and the four-wheel drive unit. It says they need service. Okay, if yours is doing that, now I took a little video of this on my phone, but now the screen is going to go up and down, but I'll do my best to get it in there and focus it in so you can see what lights are flashing in my dash. Check that out. Now, if your lights are flashing, those right there, it's probably going to be a speed control sensor on one of your wheels. Now, I checked both my front ones, and you can use an ohm meter to check those. And I think they're going to run about 500 ohms on that, between 500 and maybe 1500. I'm not completely sure. I'm not great at even using one of them meters, but if both them front ones are working fine and they're testing good, it's going to be in the back. And I think this is a common problem. That's why I'm going to do this video to show you what you're going to have to do to fix your problem. Now, on this car, it wasn't a sensor. It was the little tiny little generic bracket they put on there to hold that sensor into place. I'm going to show you because I've already replaced one. 2 weeks later, another one goes bad. Well, you know, when you get to see the piece of metal that's actually holding that little sensor into place, you're going to know why it went bad. So I got an old one over here on the table. I'm going to show you what it looks like. And I had to change the whole thing. Now, I don't know if you can get just a little metal bracket or not. But let me show you what I had to change in the back to get mine fixed. Okay, this is going to kind of freak you guys out a little bit. But this is the little bracket that actually holds the sensor into place. This tiny little bracket. As you can see, this thing is paper thin. And that had actually rotted away. You can see how bad that is right there. And it wouldn't hold my sensor in place. And that mounts right to the back of this bearing. Now, I'm not sure, but you probably could buy just this piece. The only problem with that is, wait till you see how I got to get this out. You're going to take a 2-pound sledge. You're going to be beating on this for maybe half hour, 45 minutes. You can see where I had beat on it. Different areas I had beat on it, mashed it down. This thing is a royal pain to get off, but it can be done right at home. But it's going to take some work and some patience to get it out. So I'm going to take you through every step of what it takes to get this rear wheel bearing, housing and everything out. So if I could buy just this, that would be fine. But I have to take this whole thing out to get this on. And as much as I beat on this, and I had to heat these up with a torch to get these, I used propane or MAPP gas. I used MAPP gas on these to heat them up so I can get them broke loose. Once you get it broke loose, it's hot and you're beating on it. I'm not so sure I would trust the bearings in this after doing all that work to it. So let's get to pulling out a wheel bearing. The first thing you're going to do is pull your lug nuts and your tire off. But make sure you use a jack and a jack stand. Nobody should have a jack under a car without a jack stand. So now what we need to do is we need to get the brakes off. We got to get this part off and this part off. There's 4 bolts to taking this off. We're going to go ahead and get these out of the way. This is our brake system, our caliper, and our housing for our caliper. I'm going to get this taken off. Now, here is my little sensor. I wiped it off there. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. And it hooks back in that little clip behind this hub. But we'll get to that here in just a bit. Let's get this off. Okay, for those of you who watch my channel all the time, this is the new light, the work light that we got. I'll be leaving a link in the description down below for this work light. It works off of a DeWalt battery, 20 volt or 60 volt DeWalt battery. So, yeah, that's going to work out pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to have to take out this bolt, and then this bolt right here, and that's going to get our brakes off. And then we're going to take this bolt, and then we have one more bolt right here. We're going to take them bolts out right now. So this is going to take a 14 millimeter socket for these 4 bolts here, and I would use a 1/2 inch ratchet, 3/8 adapter on it. I think that'll work because these things can be pretty tight. So we just want to get them broke loose. Once you get them broke loose, they'll come out pretty easily. So let's go ahead and pull our bolts. We're going to take these 2 out. This is for our brakes. As you can see, I've had these out before, and I have anti-seize on them, which is a good thing to do so it doesn't seize up on you the next time you have to take it out. Go ahead and pull this one off. So now we got 2 of the brake bolts off. We have that bolt off and that top bolt. Our caliper should come right out of here, like so. But what I need you to do is have a bungee cord or something that you can tie this guy up with. I was going to tie it up here somewhere. We can get it out of the way. So I got a bungee cord holding this guy up out of the way right now. So now we got to get this piece off. And this has our brake pads right here, or our brake pads. Now if we was going to change pads, it'd be pretty easy. Just pull them off and change them out. But no, we're going to do something a little harder. We got to get these bolts back here out. This one up here. And then we have one right there. We need to get these 2 bolts out. So I'm going to go ahead and get them broke loose. Now these could be a little bit tight, a little bit of a booger, but we'll get them. That one wasn't too bad. I did have these out not too long ago. That big ratchet helps a lot. The only problem is now I'm stuck against that thing back there. Let's get it out here. We might have to get a wrench and take that one the rest of the way out. This one we can get out. And I do believe that I had these all out once. So they should have anti-seize on them. And I'm going to have to get a 14 millimeter wrench. Get that top one out because that caliper is in the way now. Make sure you keep all your bolts together so you don't lose them. Okay, now we're going to pull this guy off and set it off to the side, this piece here. And go ahead and pull your rotor off. Your rotor will come right off now. If it doesn't come off, it's probably seized in around here. So what you want to do is get some Corolla oil and put in your lug nut holes there and try to get this broke loose. You might have to beat on it with a hammer, but hopefully not. So now that we got that off, now there's a few more bolts to get off here. Now, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to take this nut off. But if you noticed right here, look right there. You see that little divot right there? That little bump? We're going to take a little chisel. Let's see if we get some more light on this subject. Right there. We're going to have to take a chisel and we're going to have to bump that up a little bit right there. This is just the axle nut, and we're going to take it off, and then we have to pull this bolt out. that bolt out, that bolt there, and then that bolt right here. This is what I'm going to use as a chisel to knock this little guy up. And what this is a concrete nail. These are hardened steel. We're going to stick it up underneath of there like so, and then we're going to tap it with the hammer. But I'm going to have to move you guys out of the way here. Maybe I can give you a view. Let's see, I don't know. We're going to tap it. We're going to take that bump up. And I'll show you what we did. We took that bump and pushed it up. Now we can get our socket on there and go ahead and get this nut off. 32. It's a 32 millimeter. So now these tools you're going to have to be able to get this guy off. And I'm going to use an impact wrench. We're going to use an impact wrench to take this guy off. Okay. Now that's the 5th thing we had to take off so far. We had the 4 bolts on the brakes, and this piece here, and then of course 5 lug nuts. So now we have that off. What we're going to work on next, we're going to be working on these bolts down in here. Now these are a booger. They're pretty rough. If you look, let me show you here. Let me show you what you're working with. You see back in there? The heads of them bolts, and it's hard for me to hold all this at one time. Let me see if I can do this. Yeah, almost impossible for me to hold it. So back in here is where our bolts are. If you could see one up in the top up there. Let me get the light here. You see them bolts back in there? They're right beside the axle. And that is the bolts we have to take out. I keep hitting the switch on that light. So those are definitely hard to get out. So I'm going to work on seeing what I need to get these guys out. We're going to take a wire brush and we're going to clean these up down around here. And we're going to put some Corolla oil on this. And I'll show you what Corolla oil is. Now this is Corolla oil. This stuff here is really good stuff to use. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take a little wire brush, and this is just a tiny little wire brush, and we're going to clean this up real good, especially around this edge, all the way around. We're going to clean as much of the junk off of this thing as we possibly can. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our Corolla oil, and we want to get some oil on each one of these, up around the edge up here, and then all over this on each one of these. Okay, now we got this cleaned up pretty good in here, and we put some oil in there. Now we're not going to put any heat on these just yet. Now, when you put your breaker, now I have a really long breaker bar on this nut right here. It's hard to see everything because there's just not enough light. So I have this nut right here. We cleaned everything we could, put some Corolla oil on them, and we got the breaker bar. Now look, we got a lot of different things here to work with. Different size extensions. We have a swivel. We have a 3/8 ratchet, or a 1/2 inch ratchet. And we got a big extension here, because each one of these bolts has its own has its own way of coming out, and some of them can be a little bit tough. So we're gonna work with the breaker bar on this one and see if we can get it out, and then we're gonna just take our time. If we get excited, things are not gonna go right, so we're just gonna take our time. And I think this one's gonna come right out. I tried to move it a little bit, and I think it started to move. So we're gonna go ahead, set you guys down here, and I'll move this light over here. And I think this one here might be gonna move, and it is. So that's good. I might be able to take the 1/2 inch ratchet now, and stick on this one. It's kind of in a bad, all these are in a bad place because they're in the back. So that one come loose. Now, let's say that one wouldn't come out. Here's what I used the last time. I used some MAPP gas, okay? You can pick this up at the Lowe's or whatever, and you can get your little tip right there on the Amazon. And I usually leave links for a lot of this stuff. And you can just take your heat, and what you do is put your heat on this nut. Right in there. Just like so. And if you get enough heat on there, this piece of metal will swell up, and you'll be able to get your bolt out the back. So keep that in mind if you can't get them broke loose. So I'm going to go ahead and take these 4 bolts out, which I know they all have their own set of problems. And if I come into a really bad issue, I'll show you guys how I have to get it out. If we have to put heat, I'll get you back in here. But right now, I'm going to go ahead and get these bolts out. So bear with me, hang in there. Let's see how this goes. I always like to take the easiest ones out first. The ones that are pretty simple, that way you don't get aggravated and all upset because you can't get it out. But I'll tell you, getting upset is not going to get that bolt out. You can get upset all you want. It just doesn't help. You just have to figure it out. What do I have to do next to get the next bolt out? And I might have to change my socket. I might have to get a different socket. There's always some kind of a problem that will come through with these. Now, this one here looks like, I think I could get a ratchet. Well, look at that. I didn't get excited. It broke loose. The ratchet's not all the way on there. I can't get the whole thing on there. I can't get the whole ratchet on there, but it's on there enough that it's turning the bolt, and that's all I care. And by the way, I'm not a mechanic. No, I'm not a mechanic. I'm just doing it because, guess what? I don't have the money to pay somebody else. So I'm going to do it myself. It's not that hard. Well, it's hard, but just take your time. If we don't get excited, things will work out. They always do. And if it gets real bad, I'll stop and go in the house and quit. But for now, we're going to take our time and keep going. And then later, maybe we'll go in there and get a cup of coffee or something, come back out and do a little bit more. Another bolt out. That's because we're not getting excited. Now we might get excited on the next two. Let's see how this one goes. I think the big thing is to make sure your socket goes all the way on, because you do not want to strip these bolts out. That one went all the way on, but I don't know if I could get a ratchet up in here. Maybe. So far we haven't had to add any heat to this one. The other one over there was so rusted up I had to add heat to both of them. Or 4 of them, I had to add heat to all of them. This one's coming out by hand. That's where I'm at, back in there. There it is, right there. So that's number 3. One more to go. See if we can find it back in here. They don't give you a lot of room, that's for sure. Oh, I got the socket on it. It's way down in there. Let's see if we can put this light over here. You can see down in there where I'm working. You see it down in there? Right there. It's on the other side of the axle. Here's your rubber boot. There's your sockets up in here. So I'm going to go ahead and try to break that one loose now. Sometimes a good hit with your hand will make it move. And it's moving. So we're in good shape. Oh yeah, this one is coming out now. There it be, right there on the end. That's it. So, let's see here now what we got. This is what we had to take off. Get that thing out of there. Come on, buddy. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to try to keep all of our bolts together. As you can see, we had those 4 big ones to take out. There's 2. These 4 here went to our brakes. These 2 here to the brakes. This to the brakes. And then we had to take out these 5 bolts. And then, or nuts, off of our lug nuts. And then this is our axle bolt. So now, we are completely free of bolts. This thing here will push in. You can see it pushes in right there. So we're going to have to get this guy off, and that is the hardest part. So I'm going to go get my tools for taking this off, and I'm going to show you how we get it off. Alright, I have my tool. This is my tool of choice to get this thing off. Now, mind you, you can see up in here how rusted up this is. I mean, it's super rusted up in here. It's seized in there. It's not coming out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hammer and I'm going to try not, and I know what's going to happen. You see this metal thing? Because on the other side I hit it like 10 times and then I had to bend it back into shape. But I'm going to hit it in this area here. And I'm going to hit it, I'm going to tap it. And I might tap that thing until I'm blue in the face. But I'm also going to take my Kroll oil and put it in this crack. I want to get it down in that crack. I'll put some in these holes. And I'll even put some down in the back right here. So it'll go down, run down around the outside edge. We need all the lubricant we can get around this to break that thing free. So we're just gonna tap on it. And you're probably thinking, well, why are you beating on that? Well, I'm gonna get all this new. When I get my bearing, I get the whole housing and everything together. And if I destroy this, so be it. You know what I mean? Let it go. Because by the time, how am I going to get that out? Is there a special tool to pull this? I don't know. I'm just doing what I got to do to get this thing out. So we're going to get to working on this and see what we can come up with. Okay, I'm going to turn this light here off so you guys can see a little better. I'm going to go ahead and leave that camera run for a little bit, and we're just going to see if we can get this off. Now, if I can't get it loose tonight, I'll put some Kroll oil on it. We'll put some of this oil on it, and we'll let it soak all night. But if for everything has come loose pretty easy so far. So I'm going to beat on it for a while, see if we can get it to wiggle a little bit, and then if it'll come, it'll come. Not. I think we got it moving. I think I seen it back in there moving, splashing that stuff out of there. I think we got it loose already. That's not bad. Ugh. Okay, there is what we want to change. And I don't even see the ring on this one. This is the ring. Look, it's all the way off. It's a little rusted up booger. Look at this. That's the clip that's actually holding your little sensor in, is this piece right here. And look how rotted it is. It's paper thin. This one don't even have the back at all on it. So this is what we got to change. Now, can you just buy this and put it on the back of here? And my problem was, after I had beat on it so much, would you want to stick this bearing back in? I'm not so sure I would want to put that bearing back in after I beat on this so much. That's not something I would want to do. So we're basically going to get everything cleaned up and ready to put the new one on. That was a pain in the butt, but if you got the money, now figure, I don't know what a mechanic charges now, but I guarantee it ain't cheap. 160 bucks an hour, 180 bucks, I'm not sure. I just don't have the money to pay for it, so we have to do it ourselves. And as you can see, we're doing it. Alright, you're all going to have to bear with me a little bit. I got some fans on here. It is winter, and I'm warming up the garage, so hopefully you can hear me just fine. We have our new bearing right here in the box, and it's telling you if you need help, make sure you call the number on the box, which we should be fine. I'm going to get this out of the box. Here there's another warning on the bearing itself telling you to call them if you have any issues. So we're going to lay this guy out here on the table. We're going to compare it with these bearings to make sure everything looks identically the same. And I'm pretty positive everything's going to be fine. But now this is that little clip that we needed. That little clip. That's all we really needed off of this bearing, was this little clip. Now you can buy just the bearings. I think you can buy just this piece and the housing. But if you don't have a 20-ton press to press all this together, then, you know, it's going to be an issue. This is the easiest way to do it. It's probably the most expensive, but it's the easiest way. And this is the one we just took out. And that's the little clip that we're having issues with. Both of these little clips right here. This is what holds your speed control sensor down. Now, I could have just tried to change this, and I could have got a wheel puller and tried to pull this off without beating on the this piece here. The only thing is, this car has about 115,000 miles on it, and these bearings are probably about due anyhow. So at 115,000, I just went ahead and bought the whole thing. It's easier for me to put it in, and I could get the job done a lot faster. So we're going to go ahead and get to installing this piece back on the car. Alright guys, so we're going to go ahead and get ready to start putting this guy back together. What you're going to need to do is make sure you clean this out real good where we beat that bearing out of that housing there. Clean it up real good with sandpaper and put some anti-seize on it. As you can see, I started the video, well, I didn't start the video and I thought I was, but I put the anti-seize already on. Now this is not a grease. This is just going to keep those two pieces of metal from seizing together. And then you're going to put your housing on. We're going to take our housing. We're going to place it up where it goes. Then we're going to place our bearing on. Now make sure that your bearing or your clip for your speed control sensor or ABS sensor is pointing up. Now we don't want to damage that sensor, so let's get it in here. Slide it up on your axle. Now you can spin that bearing back in there a little bit and line it up with them holes. Make sure you clean your nuts with a wire brush really good, because we got to get them back in there and we don't want to have to beat the socket or nothing. We want it to go on nice and easy. So from the back, go ahead and start your bolt. Now these are a little tight to get to. Just do the ones you could reach right off the bat, and then we'll worry about the ones that are harder. Like I said, it's a little tough getting in there, but you can get it. And now that we cleaned the threads and everything on them, they should be a lot easier to get in. So I got one started there. I'm going to go ahead and work on getting another one, because once we get two started, we know that we're lined up. Very hard to get your fingers back in there, but just take your time. Don't get excited. Once you get it through the housing, go ahead. Like I said, it's just not a lot of room back in there. But we'll slide our socket on this one. Now whatever you do, don't tighten these bolts down yet, because we still got two more to go. Leave them loose so you can still move that a little bit. If you put it too tight and then you're trying to get it in there and it won't go, and then you're all bent out of shape. We're not going to do that. We're just going to take our time and do these guys real slow. If we get excited, we'll sit down and take a break. Now this one here, I can't see it at all. I'm just kind of feeling around to find a hole, and hopefully I can hit it. I think we found it back in there. Sorry about the light. Okay, that one is in. Now we have one more on this bottom over here to get. Okay, now I think we got all four of them started. It looks like it so far. We'll see here. Everything just has to go back together, just kind of backwards. Do it the way you took it apart, but just do everything backwards. Okay, that one is good and started. I'm gonna finish snugging this one up. We can go ahead and stick a ratchet on these now, and we can tighten these down. Now go ahead and get these as tight as you possibly can. I am sure you're probably supposed to take a torque wrench and torque these guys. But I'm getting them as tight as I can, and I think they're going to be fine. More than a torque wrench. Okay, that's 2 down. We just have 2 more to go. Okay, that's 3 down. 1 more to go. Okay, we have all four of our bolts in now. These 4 back ones holding this together, and we got our anti-seize where we needed it. So now we're going to start with the axle nut. You remember when we taken that off? So we're going to take our axle nut and we're going to go ahead, get our 30 millimeter, I think it was 30, not sure. No, it was a 32. With our 32. So we're going to go ahead and snug this guy up. I want to get it to about where it was dented in before, and I think we're perfect right there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little punch. We're going to tap down right here where that keyway goes, and we're going to make a little dent in that nut on that piece of metal. And that is perfectly fine. You can see the little dent right there, and we dented it back down into that keyway. So I think this was our hardest part. The rest of it is just putting these brakes together, and we're going to bring you along for that too. So on this part, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put our rotor back on. Slide the rotor on like so. And then we're going to grab our, this was our brakes that we had pulled off. These are the brakes, and as you can see, inspect your brakes while you got them off. These are in good shape. It wasn't long ago that I had changed these out. Make sure you got a little bit of anti-seize on these bolts, because it's a good chance that we might have to change brakes the remainder of the time that we own this vehicle. So now we're going to be putting the brakes back on this side. So we're going to slide them down into place like so. Grab our slightly bigger bolts, just slightly bigger, and we're going to go ahead and get these guys started in here. And like I said, these have a little bit of anti-seize on them. Don't get frustrated with this stuff. Just take your time. It'll go in. Just got to be patient. Now, for some reason, you guys can't remember how this went back together. Before you take it apart, make sure you take pictures. You can always take pictures. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to snug those bolts up. And I do believe them were a 14 millimeter. I do believe. Let's see. Yep, 14 millimeter. We won't tighten them all the way until we both got them both snug. Now we're going to put some pressure on these guys because we want them fairly tight. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Now we have to put our caliper on. So we're just going to slide that back down over there, slide it over our brakes, get that into position. There, it's our top one. Might have to wiggle it around a little bit to get it started in there. Once you get those started in there, you're going to take your 14 millimeter and we're going to go ahead and tighten these up. Once you got them both kind of snug, go ahead and tighten them down. Now don't forget, these are your brakes, so you want to make sure they're fairly tight. Okay, I think we're good. Now we have our brakes back on, our calipers on there, our housings on there, our spindle, our bearings in. Now, what I said was the hardest part is getting our little sensor back into that hole. So we're going to be working on it next. All right, this is our dreaded clip, the one that had given us all the trouble to begin with. If you notice, the way this clip is, it has two little grooves on it. The small groove, the little slice right here on the top I have right here, is going to go to the inside. When you put it in, it's going to go down into the inside. This piece here. Very, very hard to do this because there's no room to really get your fingers up in there and you cannot see what you're doing. So I'm going to get up underneath there and put a couple cameras under there and see if we can get it on video, but I'm not so sure it's going to work. So we're going to get started on that next. Okay, my thing is I don't know if you guys can see where that thing got to go in there. But right here is the axle, right there. It goes right in the top on that bearing. So it's all got to be done by feel. Find the clip that we need to put it in. Then we have to slide it down in that clip. So it's going to be tough. But I'm going to set the camera down. As you can see, I have two cameras going here. And I'm not so sure you can see anything. But I'm going to reach up in here and see we can get that clip in our fingers. Find where it goes. This is probably the hardest. I mean, as far as finding that clip and getting it down in there, it's really tough. Now if we had a lift or something we could put it on, that would be different. But we don't have a lift, and we have to do it by feel. We have to feel it down in there. Then we have to get it to go in its slot. I got it. Now we want to make sure that clip, that thing goes all the way down in there where it goes. Whew, we got it. It's a tough one. I don't know if you guys can see that down in there. Where that clip goes, it's really hard to see, but I'm hoping you guys can see it. It's definitely a hard place to get that clip in. The only thing left we got to do is put the wheel on, take the jack stands out, and take it for a test ride and see how it worked. Always make sure you spin your lug nuts on as far as you can before using the impact, because the impact, if you get it cross-threaded, it's going to be cross-threaded forever until you get another stud. So you want to screw it on pretty far before you put the impact to it. And that is the lowest setting on my gun. We'll go ahead and put it down on the ground, so it'll give it something to hold that tire into place. With the tire on the floor, we can go ahead and snug these up a little bit by hand. And there is a torque for these. If you choose to torque them down, you can. You can look that up, Google it. Okay, that was changing the wheel bearing on the Mitsubishi Outlander Sport. Now, I only changed that because that sensor was out. But being that it had 115,000 miles on it, I went ahead and changed the bearings, the housing, and everything. And I did that to both sides, because if one goes bad, the other one's going to go bad. Believe it or not, a week and a half ago, I put the other one on the other side, and we took it through a car wash and did the undercarriage wash, and that's what blew that line back off. And, you know, you can't help it. But if you want to try to get a puller on there and try to push on that center spindle part, that's up to you. I didn't want to put a puller on there because I was afraid it might damage the seal that goes into the rear end, and I just didn't want to deal with that. So that's why I chose to take a 2-pound sledge and just beat on that thing until I got it out, because I bought everything new anyhow. So we're going to go ahead and get ready to take this guy out for a test ride. And we're going to see if them lights stay on. So we'll check it out. Okay, we're going to go ahead and start up the car and see what lights come on. Okay, as you can see, there's no lights on the dash now. I do think that that was a success, putting those in there. Now, like I said, in this whole video, I tried to give you information as I go to let you know what I did to fix those lights. And I hope that you're able to do your own, because the cost of you know, a mechanic today is pretty expensive. Now, I don't know what that would cost, but I just wouldn't want to pay it. So I tried to do my best to do it as slow as I could and show you what you had to do to get it back together and what I did, and it fixed my problem. If you have a speed control sensor pop up, your traction control light, your ABS light comes on, it's probably going to be one of them sensors. What I would do is I would test the two front ones first, and then go straight to the back ones and look and see if they're actually down in that little slot. If they're not in that slot, you might be able to push it back down in and it'll stay, but I doubt it. For as thin as that metal was, it's probably not going to stay. You're either going to have to change that little housing, and totally up to you if you want to use a wheel puller and pull that off, but I wouldn't want to take a chance on messing the bearing or the seal up in the rear end, pulling that thing out, because you got to beat on that puller anyhow. So I just did the whole thing all at once and put it in there and plugged them in, and this car should be good for another 100,000 miles with bearings in the back for sure. So I would like to tell everyone, thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to subscribe. Leave me thumbs up, thumbs down, or a comment if you'd like. Until next time.